Coraline is an adventurous 11-year-old that has just moved to a rickety old house with her parents. Since they're so busy working on their next gardening book, they find themselves getting frustrated with Coraline, who is feeling a bit lonely and neglected. So on the flip side, Coraline is upset with them as well. But then Coraline discovers a secret passageway, a tunnel which leads to a parallel dimension where everything is mostly the same. Same house, same parents, same neighbors, except this alternate world is like a paradise for Coraline. Coraline's other mother tries to convince her to stay in this idealized world forever. And the offer is pretty tempting, but when Coraline refuses, it becomes very clear that this other home is a sinister trap laid out just for Coraline. And this dream adventure ends up turning into this dangerous nightmare. Coraline is the first feature film by Laika, a studio that specializes in stop-motion animation. Coraline was directed by Henry Selick, who had previously made James and the Giant Peach and A Nightmare Before Christmas. One of many interesting things about Coraline is that it was the first stop-motion film to be shot entirely in 3D. Now, depending on the version you watch, you can see it in good old-fashioned 2D, or you can watch the version that came with these wonderful Coraline 3D glasses. Or there's also a newer version that lets you watch it on special 3D TVs. Normally, I wouldn't hammer on about 3D for so long, a feature that a lot of people are completely indifferent about, but it is a major part of this movie's identity. Also, with it being stop motion and 3D, you know it wasn't a complete afterthought. The 3D camera work is very obvious. You actually feel like you're going to get your eyes poked out. But don't worry, it's so sharp you won't feel a thing. I just have to say, Coraline is absolutely stunning to look at. Sure, everything looks a little ugly, but that's just part of the joy of watching stop-motion animation. The art direction itself, and all of the sets and the character models, all of the little detail, everything just looks downright awesome. Coraline is a gorgeous movie, and the animation itself is so imaginative and fun. I think you can get even a little more appreciation for the visuals if you check out some of the behind-the-scenes featurettes. Really, with any animated film, but especially with Laika productions. I think it adds a bit of magic, knowing that everything on screen is real and handcrafted. But it's not just the visuals that makes Coraline stand out. There's the hauntingly beautiful score that really blends perfectly into the movie, and really sets the tone for the whole thing. The characters themselves are terrific. I love Coraline and her parents, and the cat is awesome. Also, she befriends other people in the area, and they're all decently fun characters. They're all pretty uniquely eccentric, and their entire personalities pretty much revolve around one of their talents. But it works perfectly for this movie because their personalities exist almost purely so they can craft this fun set piece to win Coraline over. Well, not only that, but also as an obstacle for her to overcome. These characters are exactly as complex as the movie needs them to be. Not very, but they are quirky, memorable characters, and they add charm to the movie. Even if sometimes it seems like, I'm sorry, I completely lost my train of thought. Now, there's no other way I could possibly phrase this. Coraline is a complete and total roller coaster ride experience. It's fast-paced, it's fantastical both in the real world and in the alternate dimension, and it's fairly exciting, even when nothing necessarily dangerous is going on. It can actually be a bit overwhelming, and if you find yourself overstimulated by certain movies, you might want to avoid this one. It's not only chaotic and strange and imaginative, but it's also a very scary movie. I think it's perfectly valid to consider Coraline a horror movie that also happens to be a family movie. But it's safe to say that Coraline is easily the scariest animated film I've ever seen. Setting aside the many disturbing visuals shown in the movie, the plot itself revolves around a child being seduced by a monster in her house. A monster that kills children, a monster in sheep's clothing. There's some body horror in this movie, and ghosts, and other scary stuff. And even though it's a pretty clean movie, The whole thing radiates this uncertain and creepy threat. The craftsmanship is both appealing and creepy. I love how mucky and washed out everything is, like the color and life has been sucked out of everything. But when you go into the fantasy world, everything is bursting with color and it's so lively. But at the same time, there's a sense of danger lurking around. And the color choices are so striking. It's just, everything's perfect by design. Actually, when it all comes down to it, that's my main takeaway from the movie. It's perfectly crafted. From the visual aspect to the audio, the storyline and the characters, the wackiness and the horror, there isn't a single bad thing. Actually, there isn't a single bad aspect to the movie. At least nothing I can say is a valid criticism. I think depending on the viewer, this movie could just be generally a bit too much. But if what you're looking for is a strange and artistic experience, well, that's exactly what Coraline is offering, and it'll deliver that in spades.
Making up a song about Coraline. She's a peach, she's a doll, she's a pal of mine. She's as cute as a button in the eyes of